Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. This week we're going to be going over Baker Street, a 1989 comic from Caliber Press. But before we get into that, I'd like to show you some of my own artwork. And I do a comic called Random Access, which I produce for my patrons. You can get these at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin, or you can go to my website, alexanderturbin.com. I produce, like I said, a full-size, full-color comic book every month for my patrons, and it's only $2 a month for patrons. Or you could just contact me directly through Instagram at AlexTurbin0441. And if you help support the comic books, you help support the channel, and it all goes into helping me out continuing to do these reviews and doing my comics, and I greatly appreciate it. And so let's get into Baker Street. I have this, and I remember buying it in 1989 as soon as it came out. I unfortunately don't have. I think I have one other issue, and like I said before in other videos, uh, black and white comics came out very randomly to different comic book stores. Like one comic store would order no comics, and then another one would order 10 or whatever. And so you never really knew exactly what you were going to get month to month. And if you were going to start a new series, then you didn't know if they were going to finish it or if they were going to pick it up. So I think that's why a lot of people didn't get into any of the black and white comics that really are awesome. Um, I remember getting this and I was really excited to read it. I'm not a huge Sherlock Holmes fan. Like, I would say I'm barely a fan. I really like the Cumberbatch version, and that's probably my favorite version. But I'm not really into the Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes books or anything like that. So I'm not really a huge fan. Which thankfully this series doesn't really delve that far into the Sherlock Holmes mythos. I guess they were going to do retelling of the story in their universe, but then decided that it would be better to go into a different vein. So here we go, Baker Street #1. Um, it is written and created mostly by Guy Davis, with Gary Reed doing some of the scripting. I'm not entirely sure what is what because there is a lot of scripting and there's a lot of writing, and it's not bad. Definitely, it's actually very good. But when you get into this, if you decide to pick up a copy of Baker Street, you're going to have to make a commitment. I hear oftentimes that Jim Rugg will talk about the amount of story in Cartoonist Kayfabe, which I watch a lot, and they're a great YouTube channel. But he often goes off on these comics that have a lot of text and a lot of writing, a lot of dialogue, like it's a bad thing. I think in particularly he gives Sandman kind of a hard shake because there is so much writing and there is so much story, and it's not mainly focused on the art. I totally understand his point of view, and if you're, that's kind of what you like and what you don't like. But at the same time, a lot of writing isn't always bad. Sure, if you pick up Spawn #1 and you're like, oh man, I got to read all this stuff and it's not very good, you get into it and you're like, this is just is not enjoyable for reading, then that's completely understandable. But a lot of times, a lot of stories, they're easy reading or they're hard reading. For example, Harry Potter, when I read those books, those were like a breeze to read. I went through them like in a day, you know. But then I pick up something like H.P. Lovecraft, and there's no dialogue, and it's all descriptive prose and old English type of writing. It takes a little bit more thinking on the um, writing for writing's sake level, which doesn't mean either one is bad because both of those books are great. It's just one has a little bit more in depth and in the fact that you have to kind of concentrate a little bit more and translate in your brain from the written word into what you're thinking in your head. it makes it a little easier as comic books because you have illustrations that can kind of convey the what the writer is trying to say, what the artist is trying to say, and it can make things easier. That is, if it's well done. If it's not so well done, then it makes it a little bit harder. I'm going to go in. I'm going to say, just for the sake of time, because I've already wasted a lot of time yapping. I'm already going to give this like a 9. I think this is a beautiful comic, beautifully illustrated, really well written, and it's just it's one of my favorite comic books that I've read, or that I have. It's really fantastic. I would say cracks my top 50 easily. And that seems like a lot, top 50, but there are a lot of really fantastic comics out there. So I'm going to go through this. I've already given it a 9. I would maybe give it a 10 if I could. Like I said, the writing is very intense and you have to kind of translate it in your brain. If you didn't have to do that, then I think I would have given this a 10 because this is such a beautiful comic. And some of the other little tidbits that I'm going to go through as I'm reading this. The Baker Street intro letters by Guy Davis and Gary Reed are basically Guy Davis tells you that this is an alternate world where World War II never happened, and this is like a punk setting. It's yeah, so it's just modern day punk, and I guess that's the only difference is that there was no World War II, so some of the things in the timeline are a little different. Gary Reed just goes on to say basically the same thing, that he's proud of it. This is one of Caliber Press's very early comics, and he just goes on to say he was proud to do it, and that if you have any letter comments or whatever, then give him a shout. The very first page, it's a 2-page spread, which is very ambitious, and I love it. I would say, so like some of the strengths of Kachishiro, I'm sorry, I butchered his name, Otomo in Akira, is his fantastic backgrounds and cityscapes and stuff like that. And I would say this gives it a run for its money. It's Victorian, it's London, but it's like I said, it's an alternate universe, Victorian London kind of thing. So, but I mean, look at that beautiful cityscape with some nice black and white art and some zipatone duo shade, whatever that is. I think it might be Zipatone. That's the one where you use the plastic and you rub it off, right? I think that is what it is. But like I was saying, the type of writing this is, it's very in depth. So you can't just go into this comic. You can't buy it and fully appreciate it thinking that you're just gonna buy a nice, pretty little comic and you're gonna fly through it in a couple minutes. It's not manga. You're not going to have 5 panels of action lines and very little dialogue and very little story at the end of 20 something pages. You're gonna have to take your time and read all of the text, and if you enjoy it, then you do, and you like it like me. If you love it like me, but if it's not your thing, then you're gonna know right off the bat that it's not your thing because of the amount of text and the way that it's written. Like this is, it very much is Sherlock Holmes, like I said, and you have this main character, and she's the Watson type character, and she's a medical student, and she needs a place to live, so she answers this ad, and it's basically like I said, a Sherlock Holmes setting where this character Sharon is the Sherlock Holmes-esque type character. Only she's a little bit different because she's a punker, and she's got this whole big backstory. Because I know a little bit of the backstory from, I haven't read all of the issues, which I'm definitely going to go and get. People are so lucky nowadays. I remember back in the day, I wanted to get more issues of this so badly, but there's no eBay in 1989, 1990, whatever. there's no Amazon. There's, you just scour the comic book stores and hopefully you find it. And if you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. And it's you're out of luck if you don't, which I was out of luck. So 30 years later, I am going to go hunting for the rest of Baker Street because I think there's a 10 issue arc going on here and two different storylines. So the intro is um, I can't remember her name, but she's going for this job to be a helper for the Sherlock Holmes type character Sharon. She's like a punk rocker, and she lives above a bookstore, and she's also got another punk rock roommate who is kind of meanish, and she snaps at the girl here. And man, I wish I could remember her name. It's so stupid that I just read this and I can't. Sam is her name. Sharon is her name, and Susan. Susan, that's her name. Susan, Sharon, and Sam, and that's the three main characters in this book. And Susan and Sharon are no, sorry, Sam and Sharon are punkers, and they I guess they just do their thing. There's a whole underworld of punk rock culture going on here, and this is the part that I really and truly say that if you're going to read this, you have to invest your time and your thoughts and your energy into reading it and maybe rereading it and maybe rereading it again because I'm going to reread this again. I mean I read it back in the day. I probably read it since, and then I just read it a little while ago, and I'm going to read it again because the they have the dialect and the slang and all of that stuff from not only from English but from punker type slang. So it's very difficult to read the dialogue in that sense. It's like deciphering a different language almost, but it gives it a real feel of authenticity as well. And it's this detective, and he's talking to Sharon, and they're talking about the different gangs that are going on, the punk gangs, and there was a murder, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. I think there was a gang fight as well, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And so these other punkers kind of join the conversation, and this is there's a lot of conversation going on, and it could so easily delve into talking heads, which is just basically these panels right here where one person's talking and then another person's talking. But Guy Davis, who is, he's gone on to do great works for DC and I don't know Marvel, but he's gone on to do some really great work. But I truly think that this is his best stuff, and it could have easily degenerated into talking heads, but he makes the panel layouts look really good. I mean, there's a lot of them, a lot of panels, and there's no real big establishing panel, which is kind of what I like. So that's the reason I give it a 9 instead of a 10. But there's a lot of dialogue going on. It's a lot of real punk, thick, heavy accent punk British dialogue going on. So you're gonna have to read, panels 3-4 times unless you can get it right off the bat. I know that you get kind of a sense of that when Chris Claremont does his Rogue and his Gambit accents, and also in Sandman he uses the English accents quite literally, and it's not quite as thick here because this is the punk rock stuff, but so it's a little bit easier to decipher. So, like I said, you're going to have to read this a few times if you're not really steeped into that kind of thing. And I really have read a lot of stuff like that. There's also like I said, there's walls of text, and if you're not into the story, then just get out now because it's not going to get any simpler later on. It's just Susan talking about what's going on and kind of recapping the bits that she could understand because she's an American. So she's as lost as we are as readers, which is really makes a lot of sense because she's trying to decipher what they were saying in their thick London punk accents as we are. So, like I said, it gives a lot of authenticity, but it also it's very interesting, and it gives you an air of building the world. I mean, there is a world here already in just a few pages. Oh yeah, here's another little tidbit. Instead of page numbers, he's Guy Davis has little clock things like it's 12 o'clock here and it's 1 o'clock there. Um, so I think that's 1 o'clock. Yeah. So no, 1:10. Sorry, 12:10. Sorry, sorry. Um, so and it goes further and further, which maybe they could have done that in The Watchmen. That would have been a cool idea, because the countdown for the clock was one of the main themes. But anyway, Susan uses this giant walls of text. It's like her diary, and she's trying to decipher what's going on. But she decides to go to a club that Sharon is going to investigate what's going on. And she's walking to the club, and she comes across these punkers, and they're going to rough her up a little bit because these punk rockers are not nice. I would say that this is a little bit in the vein of Love and Rockets. Love and Rockets, I think, may be an Americanized version of this. I don't know if Guy Davis is American or British or what, but I kind of feel like this is a British version of that, or that's an Americanized version of this. But anyway, there's some punk rockers and they're going to rough her up. But then Sam comes to her rescue, and Sam's a badass, and she kicks the crap out of some of the punk rockers, and she's going to slice and dice with her razor blade. But it doesn't come to that because she's tough, but she's not going to kill people or cut them up too bad if it doesn't have to happen. She and Sharon kind of try to keep the peace amongst the punk rock gangs that kind of run amok in this city. So another thing that I'd like to say is a little story of mine is that when I first went to I would go to New York City with my dad every few months to see my grandparents because they lived in Queens, and we would go into New York City, and he would do some business because he's a record dealer or whatever. But one of these times we went to Greenwich Village and St. Mark and stuff because there was I don't know, we were just going there because he wanted to show me the sights, which I was really interested in. I really loved it. I can't remember whether I picked this up or not, but I remember going into a punk rock store, and it had I don't know, all these leather and chains and all this, whacked out punk stuff. And I remember it terrified me. I don't know how old I was, maybe a teenager of some sort or whatever. And, but it was before this. So I was terrified. And, but I mean, then I would leave the store and I would look around, and it would look not normalish because Greenwich Village is a little out there, or it was anyway back in the day, a little punk rock themed. But it out in the daylight, it was a little more easy to accept, I guess, to my Bangor, Maine living lifestyle, which is our city is 30,000 people, so don't get a lot of different kind of people here. But out in the daytime, everything looks kind of acceptable, and then you go into the punk rock store and you're like, whoa, this is freaky and scary. This I get the same feeling when I'm reading this comic. It's got you look at it and it's a beautiful cover and beautiful interiors. I love Guy Davis's work. But it's also a little bit scary once you delve into it, once you go into it. It's like she was saying in one of the parts is that London especially the Baskervilles is, I guess, a place in London, so, or Baker Street, and it's easier to take, or it's a charming, during the day, and then at nighttime it kind of turns into this rough and violent world, which is what this actually turns into. So anyway, Susan decides to become one of them, and because she wants to get into the mystery of who's doing what to the gangs and who killed who, and it's like just like a murder mystery amongst the punks, and she's trying to get a feel for all of the factions and the gangs and all of the people going on. So she goes kind of undercover and hangs out with the punkers for a while, and they go to one of these clubs, and all of this exposition is basically saying that they're having a hard time getting into the club. That's basically what it is. But if you enjoy reading it, which I do, then it's well worth it. So they finally make it into the club, which it's a crazy theater, and it's a punk rock club. I don't know if anybody's ever gone to a punk rock club, but it's crazy. Um, People just will do anything, and so she's learning about who the queen and the king of the punk gangs are, and they go and they do this thing, and um, there's like a dog fighting thing, which Susan is totally disgusted by, and I'm disgusted by it too. It's a dog that they hop up on drugs, and it has to kill as many rats as it can before it dies or something, or passes out, or whatever. Anyway, she doesn't like it. I don't like it. I'm disgusted by it, but I could see that happening in this world, and so anyway, it is what it is. So she has to go to the bathroom. So she goes into the bathroom, and there's a kid with a needle in his neck, and he's dead. And she's like wound up and freaking out. And this other woman, she's like, "Get the hell out of here! You don't know what you're doing." And so Susan and Sam kind of take off, and Susan doesn't understand why she's not freaking out. And Sam's like, that's the way things are around here, and we're trying to the best that we can to fix things and make things better, and you need to just chill out. And so they go back to their hotel, not their hotel, where they live, their flat. I was trying to avoid saying flat, but their apartment. There you go. And they're just, here's more walls of text of them talking about the evening's events and everything that's going on in the world, and it's just a lot of world building and character introduction and stuff like that. And so you finally find out at the end that Sharon is actually one of the bosses of the punk world, and so that's kind of how it ends. And so there's a nice little couple pinups, and back page. So, like I said, Guy Davis's art is beautiful. His architecture and his backgrounds and everything. His faces and his people can become very cartoony, and then sometimes they're not as cartoony. He kind of really flip flops. I think that as the series progresses, he gets darker and darker in his illustrative tone, and I kind of think that that's a good thing, because you're delving into this dark world. You kind of have to your illustration kind of has to symbolize that. There's not a whole lot of transitions that's going on. There's not a lot of establishing shots. Basically, the very beginning is like one of the only establishing shots, and then there's like the dance club bar thing. I guess there's an establishing shot when she goes to the bookstore, but not really. No, there's a bookstore. See, this would have been better, I think, to be on this page as an establishing shot. But I mean, where everything is, what's going on, where Susan is and where she's going, they introduce characters very quickly, and sometimes it's a little haphazardly. But there's a lot of dialogue, and if you read it, you understand what's going on. And if you pick and choose what you're going to read, then you're going to miss out on a lot of stuff. Like when I was a kid, I would just read the word balloons in comics. This was before I really got into comic books. But I would just read the word balloons and kind of ignore the text that was in the descriptive boxes. And I think I missed a lot of stuff. But like I said, I was just a little kid and didn't really know any better. But of course, as you get older and you realize that to get the whole story, you kind of have to read the whole book, and you have to, decipher what's going on in the text. So, yeah, it's beautiful artwork. It's beautiful duo shaders, Zipatone or whatever. I love the characters, their expressions, the line work. It's really it. If you take a first glimpse at it, it might seem a little bit busy, but every little busy part has a meaning, and it's very thought out. So this has already gone on. This video has already gone on a little bit longer than I wanted it to. So I hope I got across the what Baker Street is kind of like, and if you would enjoy it or not. Like I said, if you're gonna get it, if you're gonna try it, and then you need to put in the effort. You can't just kind of wing it and hope that you're gonna get everything in the book and appreciate it that way. But here's Baker Street, 1989, from Caliber Press and Guy Davis. If you enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell, and also leaving a comment if you like Baker Street or you liked it back in the day. And so there you go. Have a good one.